everyone, it's Kristen with Generation Acres Farm, and in today's video I'm going to be answering some of your most frequently asked questions about the Ankarsrum mixer. So you guys have asked for this video over and over again over the last few months, and I actually made a video all about how to use the mixer, kind of my review and my thoughts on it, all that sort of a thing. So if you need some help getting started with this mixer and some practical tips and tricks and things like that, you can find that video. I'll put it up here in the cards and then link it in the description box down below for you as well. But in this video, I asked you guys over on Instagram and Facebook to submit your questions, questions that you had about the Ankarsrum mixer, about how to use it or things like that. So I have a whole list of questions here that I'm going to get through today, and I hope that it will help you just kind of understand a little better about how this mixer works and why I love it so much. If you have any other questions that I don't address in this video, I would be glad to do a part 2 or a part 3. So drop your comments in the comment section down below and I'll make sure to answer them in a future video. The first question is, I hear there's a learning curve with your mixer. What was the most difficult part about learning how to use it? And so I would say the most difficult part was just figuring out knead times and how to use the dough roller. So the dough roller is actually one of my favorite parts about this mixer, but when you first start using it, sometimes it can seem like it's not incorporating all the ingredients. So there are some things that you can do to help with that, which I cover in my other video that talks all about how to use it. So I would say the most difficult part was just getting used to the way that this functions. So the bowl actually spins and then the roller rotates against the bowl, but it has this arm that can move. So I would say there was a learning curve, but it didn't take me long to figure it out. And now, of course, it's my favorite mixer. Like, I can't imagine what I would do without it. It's my favorite for every type of baking. So a little bit of a learning curve, but not too bad. Someone asked, is it expensive and do they go on sale ever? They are one of the more expensive mixers in this size. So of course there's like industrial mixers and things that are more expensive than these, but as far as like mixers that average people use at home, it is on the pricier side. I personally have never seen it go on sale, but I don't keep super close tabs on it, so I'm not actually sure if they go on sale or not. Asked, is it good with sticky doughs? And in my experience, yes, it is good with sticky doughs. As far as sticky doughs go, it does come with a dough hook. This is what the dough hook looks like. But I've actually never even used the dough hook, and I've made so many different types of doughs in here, including sticky ones, and I always just use the dough roller. And so I think so that's what I would recommend. If you're working with a stickier dough, I would not use the dough hook that the mixer comes with. I would use the dough roller and the dough knife, I think they call this. I would call it the dough scraper, that just kind of scrapes the edge of the bowl for you. But as far as sticky doughs, I think it works just fine with those. Someone asked, how many loaves can it handle? And the most I've ever done in here is 6 loaves of bread, which is about 13 or 14 cups of flour. And so it handled it just fine. It had no issues. So it can handle quite a bit of dough. Someone asked, did I ever try the KitchenAid mixer for bread? And yes, I did. I used the KitchenAid mixer for a while, maybe a year or two. And honestly, if I had to use the KitchenAid mixer, I would just do it by hand. So I don't love the way that mixer kneads the dough. It mixes it up fine with the paddle attachment, but once you move on to the dough hook, I just feel like it's really rough on the dough and just kind of like smushes into it, and then the dough also climbs up the dough hook while you're trying to knead it. So it's not actually getting adequately kneaded in my experience. So what I would do is use the KitchenAid mixer to mix up the dough, and then when it's time to knead it, I would just put it on the counter and knead it by hand, because like I said, I just wasn't a fan of the way that the KitchenAid treats the dough during the kneading process. Someone else asked how many loaves it can mix at one time. Again, I've done 6 before and it has handled it just fine. Someone asked, how do you know when the bread is done? Mine balls up and slams all over the place. So that sounds like an issue with the placement of your arm. So in my other video, I talked about placing the arm in a good spot for kneading. And so this mixer has an arm that moves, as you can see, and it also has a knob where you can tighten it and hold it in place. So this allows you to control the slamming that she's talking about in the question. So you don't want the arm to be slamming back and forth while you're kneading your dough. So you want to place it in a position where the dough is getting pressed up against the edge of your bowl with the roller, but not so much that the arm is swinging in constantly like that, which again, I go over in the other video. So if you need help, like practical help seeing it in action, then check out that video. And that same question said, how do you know when the bread is done? I assume they mean done being kneaded. So I always do the window pane test, or I recommend that you do the window pane test. I can tell just by looking at it at this point when it's done. But I've shared before in past videos about how to do the window pane test. So that's how I can tell if the bread has finished kneading and the gluten has developed properly and all of that. Someone asked, is it easy to clean? Yes, it's so easy to clean. Most of the pieces are dishwasher safe, so you can just pop these off and put them in the dishwasher. I don't always do that. Sometimes I'll just wash them by hand, so that way I can get to it while the dough is still wet. But the bowl itself is dishwasher safe, and then the main attachments that I use and have used so far are also dishwasher safe. And they're very much like non-stick and easy. So if you don't even have a dishwasher and are just doing it by hand, it's fine. It's super easy to clean. Someone asked if it needs the dough. Yes, it needs the dough. It is just perfect at kneading the dough. It's my absolute favorite. It's so powerful but gentle on the dough, which is just what you want when you're kneading. You don't want to be too rough on it. And I found that this mixer is it's perfect for kneading. Someone asked which settings I do different steps on and which attachments that I use. So for dough, specifically for bread making, I use the dough roller and the dough knife or bowl. They call this some sort of knife. It looks like a scraper. It scrapes down the side of the bowl. So primarily this is the only thing that I use for bread making. And as far as settings go, when I'm first mixing in the ingredients, I always put my liquid in first and I put it on a low setting, just very low, just about as low as it'll go. And then as we start adding more flour and things like that, I'll bump it up just a little bit. And then when it's time to go back down to kneading, I turn it back on a low setting, use the handy little timer that's built in over here. And I usually end up kneading my dough for about 8 to 10 minutes. So in that same question, she also asked which attachments I use. So of course, these are the ones that I use for making dough or bread. And then it comes with this attachment, which is just a plastic bowl, and then these little like whisk attachments. So if I'm whipping up something like egg whites or whipped cream or something like that, I'll use this attachment. And then if I'm making something like a batter, like pancakes or a cake or something like that, then I'll attach these little whisk attachments onto it. So those are the ones that I use. I don't have any of the extra attachments yet, but we do have a meat grinder and an oat flaker and a few other things that I have my eye on. So if I do add those attachments to my kitchen, I'll let you guys know how they work and how I like them. Someone asked, she said, I just got mine, tips to know when dough is done kneading and how much time it typically takes. So I think I did address both of those things earlier. For me, it takes about 8 to 10 minutes, and that's for a pretty large amount of dough. So if you're doing smaller batches, then it might take a little bit less time. I always do the window pane test, or I recommend that you do the window pane test if you're wondering if it has been kneaded fully or not. Someone asked, how do you know when to use the dough hook or the roller? So this mixer was made, designed, invented in Sweden. And for many years, I think maybe like 40 or 50 years, all they had were the dough roller and the scraper. And so everyone who was making bread dough, that is what they would use with this mixer. Once it was introduced into the United States in 1990, I believe it was, they actually added the dough hook as a new attachment. So this is a newer attachment for the Ankarsrum mixer. And so for years and years and years, people just used these. So honestly, I've never even used the dough hook. I don't really know why you would need to, because this works so beautifully for bread dough. So I'll probably use it sometime and just see what it does and what I like or don't like about it so I can share. But I just use the dough roller and the little scraper thing, and it works perfect for every type of bread dough, wetter doughs, and then more dry doughs like bagels and things like that. It works perfectly. Someone asked which color I have, and so I have it's called Harmony Beige. I really love just the neutral color. It just fits perfectly in my kitchen, but they have so many beautiful colors to choose from. Really fun ones if you have like a theme in your kitchen or you want like a little pop of color. They have some really, really beautiful options. Someone asked, how do you keep higher hydration sourdough sandwich bread from climbing up while mixing? So I haven't had this issue before, and I do make higher hydration sourdough sandwich bread. So I would guess that that is an issue with the placement of the arm here. So you might need to adjust it a little bit to help with that. So I would say that you might need to just adjust the arm a little bit. You can also work on kind of scraping it down. It comes with a couple little like handheld scrapers or a spatula or wooden spoon, something like that, to try to keep it down. But I'm guessing that there's maybe too much pressure. The arm is pressing the dough too hard up against the edge, and it's causing the dough to climb up it. So if you pull it away from the edge a little bit and then lock it in place where it's still being pressed against the edge, but it's not, doesn't have a ton of pressure on it, squishing the dough, I think that might help you. Someone else said, I have this mixer and have no clue how to use it, start to finish, every little detail. So that is in my other video. So make sure that you hop over there and check that out. Thank you so much for being here today. If you have any other questions, I would be happy to make another one of these videos. So